Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super Fantify. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm gonna talk about Demon Lord 2099, Season 1, Episode 8. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Was not expecting the story to, because I was so curious what was going to lead them to Akihabara and leaving Shinjuku, but I was not expecting it to turn into a school life series. I mean, hell, we also find out that Takahashi is a high schooler, and it's like, wait, did Vetto was like, I never knew that, and Takahashi's like, oh, did I never mention that? And Makina's the same way too. I'm like, oh, no one's ever mentioned that. I would have never guessed that. I do like Vetto being kind of like being the concerned adult, being like, whoa, should we really be, I mean, like someone who's in high school getting mixed up in all this dangerous stuff. And it's like, well, that doesn't matter. High school student getting mixed up in a couple dangerous things here and there. But even Makina's like, no, you, regardless of you being a high school student, like no one should just be taking all the risks that you do job wise. Either way. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we had our opening where we're getting introduced to kind of our new character, and I guess she might be like the central figure to this arc. We don't know her name, but it seems like she's kind of bullied at the school. She's looked down as lesser than, and then these girls are like, oh my god, I can't believe, oh, we matched eyes, yada, yada, yada. And she has heterochromia. Well, we also had that opening where it's like, I think her voice and someone else's voice saying like this whole sorry, and it's like, what's going on? And so, interestingly enough, like, I think it's her yellowish gold eye that the amber-ish eye that she has starts hurting or whatever. The moment Vetto walks in, so you're like, okay, so does this have something to do with one of the dark peers? Did she fuse with one of them or something like that? Because there's like many different things going on at once. Okay, so we find out about, obviously there's at least 3 dark peers that are unclear like where they're at. Because Vetto and Makina had the whole conversation of, well, Marcus is such a bold douchebag, and he would have just rubbed it in her face. The only one of the dark peers he referenced killing was Zeno. So it's like, if he had killed the others, he's too much of a prick to have not thrown that in our faces. So we can kind of take him at his word that the other 3 are still alive. Because 2 of the 3 Makina hasn't seen since the end of the Immortal War, and that was the last time she's really known where any of them were. So they're still potentially out there. So I thought that was fascinating. But also this is all tied into them looking for the dark records, because each one of the dark peers put it's kind of like a fingerprint of sort of like a mana signature in this records, but they've kind of been lost for like the past 500 years. So they have to be tried to find those, which will potentially help them find the 3 remaining dark peers, which I'm wondering is only one of them going to be in the Akihabara, or we end up finding out there's more than one here, and for what reasons have they been low-key? I mean, obviously, Vetto's return has kind of been not big news, because only people who know are the people that are involved, like Makina and Marcus, but, you know, the general public, even though he's gotten bigger as a streamer, it's still the thing of, you know, I mean, it's like YouTube. It's like there's so many big-time YouTubers that it's like there's some YouTubers with millions upon millions of subscribers that you probably would have never heard of, you know, because some people could be famous just because they're from, like, you know, you take like a PewDiePie. I'm sure there's plenty of people on the YouTube platform who have no idea who PewDiePie is, especially because he's not as active as he used to be, because he's not as into the grind as he was. But either way, tangents and all that aside, it's just kind of the point of like, yeah, he's pretty famous in Shinjuku to some small extent, especially after last episode being plastered all over the screens, boosting his numbers, because he's up to 3 mil now after his latest stream, which I love that you can hear the text to speech, on, and he's talking about, wait, who told me that this game was 10 hours? And his audience is like, no, you were the one that declared it was 10 hours. She's like, that does sound right. But apparently he was streaming for 72 hours straight. I also think it's super adorable that once he like beat the game and stuff like that, you cut to the other room and it's Makina watching it on a TV clapping, and I'm like, oh, that's so adorable. And she's like, next time make sure you take like breaks every 24 hours. She's like, the fact of the matter is, like, you know, I get Vetto deficiency, having to, like, I don't know if I'd be able to handle like another 3 days without you. I was like, I literally audibly said, oh, that's so cute, that's super cute. She also does this thing where she's like, oh, I can make you, oh, you want to get something to eat? She's like, oh, I can get you, was it red beans? Or we could go for sushi. She's like, I could bake a cake to celebrate, or we could go for sushi. And he's like, do you want sushi? She's like, not particularly. And I was like, what? And then later on it comes up again, and there was like a long pause, and then like Makina was like, yeah, it's a pretty popular thing. I was like, oh, it's almost like it's like a meme on the internet, I guess, in this universe. It's like some kind of like, I guess it'd probably be more likely like a variant or a version of TikTok. It's probably like a TikTok thing that's going viral, but let's just label it as a general meme or some sort. And I was like, oh, and he was like, oh, okay. I was like, I love that whole bit. But yeah, I'm going on this diatribe, but like, yeah, the whole thing was set up of, yeah, let's go to Akihabara, and it's like, well, Makina's like, oh, we could break in, but Takahashi's like, no, she's like, we could, no, Makina was like, oh, we can like smash our way in, and Takahashi was the one that was like, oh, we can break in or whatever, and Makina was like, we can't break the law, and Takahashi's like, really? You were the one that's super quick to go the violent route. Let's bust in there, do our thing. But Vetto was like, hey, let's actually sneak in by pretending to be students. I was like, I love that it was his idea. And Takahashi's just like, wow, you always come up with some like really interesting ideas. So she's the one that Takahashi's the one that forges their credentials, and they make their way to Akihabara. Obviously, it's like obviously the title of the episode was Cybermagic, so it has a slightly different aesthetic. In fact, it's a city that part of the city is something that Vetto is familiar with, him and Makina, from like 500 years ago, blended with elements of them not so familiar, because there's like magic gadgets, some of which are like prosthetics and stuff like that. There's people who are, it's kind of that, oh god, what's that term where it's just like it's kind of body modification, where like most people have replaced like most of their bodies with kind of cybernetics almost, but in this case prosthetics and stuff like that. So, and Vetto and Makina were like, oh yeah, back in their day, they're like, you would have never even imagined someone considering replacing everything except for like your brain and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, kind of just showing how much things have changed over the years. So I also love, this kind of plays in what I was saying about Vetto not being famous, where he's just like, oh, I'm Vetto, and the lady's like, I'm gonna need to see your ID. It's like an automated system, and he's like, wait, you don't recognize my face? I have 3 million subscribers. It's like, it's kind of that hoity-toity thing of, wait, do you know who I am? It's kind of that. And I don't think he necessarily meant it in an arrogant way, even though it can be, he kind of is arrogant in that regard, but it's just kind of like no, I made a name for myself, but it's like, no, I made you an ID, let's just go. And to get inside the school, they get interviewed by the principal, who Takahashi was so concerned about, like, right, like, this is my field, where it's like, the principal is from one of the 3 great houses that kind of, in fact, her family in particular owns, like, was it like half the city or something like that? Rules over like half the city. And so I wonder if the other half, I guess, maybe split evenly between the other 2 families. Like, why is her family like got half of it, and maybe the other 2 are splitting that other? I was like, how did that work? You would just split. You would almost assume. I mean, there's no even split. I was about to say, like, you just expect at least a 33% split around. I mean, I'm saying all that, but it might be a thing of that split between the other 50% might not be as big as I thought. Not unless that's unrelated. Like the thing that she has, like, her family has like half control of. Maybe that's not necessarily I think she was referring to the whole Magic City as a whole, but it could just be like something else aside from Akihabara. Maybe like a portion of Akihabara is like the Magic City, and her family owns like half of it or something like that. But I don't know. But yeah, like, Takahashi was concerned, like, well, Makina nor Vetto can help with this stuff, so she's like hoping her fake credentials could fool her, but she kind of, was asking questions and immediately accepted them in, and it's like, oh, Takahashi was worried about nothing, but then she's like, oh, I have questions, and Vetto's like very, very upfront of like, yeah, I want to get inside the treasury because I can't stand like not knowing some things, like things being secret to me, which she was all for. She's like, hey, I understand that it's more than just curiosity that brought you here, but there's a powerful seal on the treasury, and you need 3 items. Her family's item, which is the sword. You also need the crown and the orb from the other 2 families, but the orb is missing now. So like that's why I'm like, there's layers to this. We have to get the dark peer records, but to get that we have to get the 3 items that will unlock the doorway there. But who's to also say like getting those back? I mean, for one, I mean they even make, because I even love the way Vetto like announced this. He was talking about our quest, and it's meant to be like a video game quest where it's like, okay, one thing after another. So it feels very, I mean, plenty of games fall in this category, but it immediately makes me, even though I've never played a Zelda game, I've watched people play Zelda, it gives me Zelda vibes. Like I said, plenty of RPGs fall into that category, but just some elements of that just specifically make me think of Zelda. But I get the feeling like it's not going to be as easy as getting the 3 items. I'm sure one of those families, because like if that was the case, like why haven't, because the principal, she's like, I've actually been interested in it. So like me helping you unlock door helps my curiosity, because I'm like, what else is in that treasury? But I'm like, why hasn't any of the 3 families worked together to unlock it until now? I guess like each one wants it for themselves and don't want to like help each other open it or whatever. Because I'm like, why has she never bothered that? I mean, besides the orb being missing, like why didn't it, not unless it happened in a previous generation of that particular family? I don't know. I'm also curious, like, what these 3 relics, like, I mean, them being a crown, an orb, and a sword is interesting. Especially because, you know, like, Japanese, was it, I don't know if mythology, but, like, the 3 sacred items is, like, once again, it's a sword, a shield, and an orb, isn't it? Not a shield, a mirror. Isn't it? I always forget that, but I think the 3 sacred items are supposed to be a sword, a mirror, and an orb. I think. Once again, that might just be a thing of like I'm pulling from video games, and that's supposed to be a reference to those items while being different items. I don't know. I also love the introduction to their homeroom teacher, and he's like, "Oh, your name reminds me of sushi." She's like, "No, that's not it." She's like, "Oh, you're one of those students who just doesn't listen, do you?" And so she's like, "Right, come in when I tell you guys to come in." And it's like, okay, you know, he's like talked about the fact is he played a video game that he's like, yeah, it's all about making a proper introduction. He was like, it was a series about. I think he was like. It sounds like he's playing a JRPG. I don't know if it's meant to be a wink and nod to Persona, because Persona's not the only school life JRPG, but it's probably, I would make the argument that's probably the most popular ones. But I mean, I could be wrong. I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I could be 100% wrong. But yeah, because even Makina references like, oh, she's like, oh yeah, I saw this anime from like 80 years ago with a similar thing, yada yada yada, and they were going to make their introductions. Vetto does his with such flair. Makina is kind of very stumbling on her words, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm proficient at management and cooking. And then Takahashi introduces herself as like a super kawaii bisojo, like hacker and stuff like that. I love they to go like Vetto's like, why isn't she using her first name? And Makina's like, yeah, it's such a shame too, because she has such a cute first name. I'm like, I wonder what that is. I wonder, is it like, does she do that to consider, like, is it just because of a hacker thing of like, I wrote and I have my moniker just be my name, my last name. I don't want my first name because it takes away the coolness of me being the hacker I am, or what? Or is she embarrassed by her first name or something? Especially for Makina to be like, no, it's super cute. But yeah, now it's a whole thing of like, cool, we're going to have to gauge your powers. And he's like, yeah, if I do this, I'm going to break this. She's like, you don't have to worry about this. And he immediately breaks it when he's channeling his mana through it. And it's like, yeah. So I love stuff like this. Obviously, the most recent example, which I still need to circle back to, is Tower of God. Obviously, in Season 2 that comes up with let's test everyone's power levels and stuff. It wasn't a matter of breaking anything, but someone shattered some records and stuff. So it just kind of reminded me of that. And I love just the last shot of the episode is Makina be like, and Takahashi's like, why are you the one that's acting so smug about it? Because for her, it's like, look how great my lord is. Look how great and awesome he is. It's just like, I just love how adorable Makina is and how much of a fangirl she is of it. So it's like, yeah, he's the best. He's amazing. Like, no one realizes how amazing he is, but now you're going to realize how amazing he is. So it's like, that's super adorable. So I'm excited to see what this school life adventure is for them, because like what Vetto is going to be like in school. You know, it kind of makes me, I don't know why, just him being, because he's it just it reminds me of Noblesse for whatever reason. Just like some oddballs like transferring to a school. I think that's why it gives me that. Even though like Rai and Vetto are very different characters. Obviously, like Rai is the extremely soft-spoken type. Vetto is very like can be, but he's also like very boisterous and stuff like that. Just very opposite side personalities. But there's crossover. Oh yeah, one key thing I forgot to talk about before we get to the post credits was Vetto talked about like he's got like a new, I think maybe a new form for his blade. He referenced something having a new form, but he doesn't need it as much because he's like, well, it's mainly, he's like, oh, I've unlocked that now that I've got more subscribers, but the problem is that it's mainly used for killing immortals, and it's like, well, that's not going to be that handy. Two, it also looks similar to Graham's form. And he's like, so that doesn't fit me aesthetically. So I wonder, is it like, his whole thing is kind of darkness. So I wonder, is there a flip side to it now? The reason why he says it's too much like Graham's, is it a little more like, just aesthetically, like, it keeps the same black energy and purplish energy as you, but it just has a form that aesthetically looks like Graham? Or is it more of a light-based technique? So I wonder, is the second form meant to be like a mirror image to like his power? So it's like, right, you're all darkness, and here's a little bit of light powers, to kind of balance your repertoire of skills and stuff. I don't know. We won't know until we see it to see what he really means. I kind of hoping it's more the latter of what I said, like where it's like it's light-based power that he kind of has, or it takes on a form of like a light-based sword. I hope that ends up being the case. I'd also completely forgot too to talk about like the slight difference in our intro where we had two things replaced, because obviously Marcus is dead, and the two things are like are this new character we got introduced at the very beginning. She's the new like bit that's replaced Marcus in the intro, which I thought was kind of neat. I was curious if we are going to get a full new intro, but I'm like, we only got 4 episodes left to my 3 after this, but I was like, so I don't see that. No, still 4. Yeah, 4, because I'm mixing up numbers from a different show. Yeah, but 4 episodes after this. And so I was like, probably too late in the season be adding a new intro. But, I mean, making a small change like that isn't too much. So, and then finally, getting to the post-credits where we have Graham and Kunohara in communications. So both of them are here for whatever reason. Because whatever it was, like he closes his eyes and talks about how this place has kind of changed. And we see the same little like yellowish, like, I don't know, that effect of like, you see like the ripple, that yellowish ripple that we saw at the beginning of the episode. So I'm wondering not unless this has something to do with how Graham became an immortal, like the goddess or whatever that gave him all this. Not unless this is like that girl is like, not unless it's something connected in that regard. I don't know. Because I was thinking, what else? Why would they show that? Which, because that popped up at the beginning, but for that to connect here at the end must mean whatever this is connects more to Graham than it does Vetto, but who could be mistaken? I mean, with all this like light-based stuff, whether it's like the yellow ripples, the girls, like I said, yellowish gold eyes, plus Vetto's like weapon or whatever has that second form now that he says looks too much like Graham's. It feels like it's all relative, and that second form will probably come into play in this arc. I mean, they went out of their way to mention it. So I'm very, very excited, like I said, to see how this school life adventure plays out. I wonder what most of this section of the anime take place here, or how that's going to play out. But like the next episode is called, was it like the poor student and the well, it was the poor student and the something student. So it feels like it's her and Vetto, because he's probably going to get a lot of notoriety because of his personality, but also being extremely powerful, and she's probably on the lower end of everything because of whatever her circumstances are. It might be that because if this was any other series, she'd be the main protagonist, because it could be a thing of she has like, either she just comes from a poor family, or she has very little magical ability, so she gets ridiculed and underestimated, like your typical like protagonist, like a Naruto who can never get the clone jutsu right, or God, there's plenty of other examples of like anime or manga where the main protagonist is at a magic facility, but they have like awkward, like either little to no magical abilities, and the whole point is like, oh, that's made them exceptional or whatever. So I wonder if that's going to be like that thing, and it probably has something to all those potential elements probably tie into whatever her extenuating circumstances are that make her crucial to this arc. I'm rambling about speculating about, what this could all be and what it could all mean. We'll won't know until the next episode takes us a little further and dives deeper into all of this. So oh yeah, I also forgot. I thought it was kind of a neat little extra thing too. They can't have familiars at this school, so that's interesting too. Considering like that was always something that put Vetto at a disadvantage. Wasn't really much of an issue anymore. Granted, he still would have had to deal with it. His real form like counteracts that, so familiars would have never been an issue, and he's able to still compensate for that where his power level currently is, but this puts him at a more even playing field, probably puts him at a major advantage considering like no one has to familiars, because the whole point is you need to learn the basic of magic, and it's like you need to know the depths of magic, and if you have kind of like the cheat code of a familiar, kind of trivializing that and making it simple, because the whole point was to make it so that anyone can really do magic, you got to learn the basics to really understand the true essence of it. So no familiars at this school, which obviously means nothing. Like I said, nothing to Vetto, considering he never had one to begin with. So very, very interesting little detail, and obviously it's going to be pretty significant going forward. So just I needed to add that in there as well. But yes, I've run my mouth off longer than I expected to. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens next. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.